students are giving, but that student reps aren't receiving. So yeah, that's how I would say how I answer that question.
Now Noor has some questions that's been posted up.
Okay, so do you support the UCU industrial action and lecturers cancelling lectures,
Students are giving, but the student reps aren't receiving.
And if that does occur
so yeah,
again,
that's how I
how
would
will
say
you
how I
ensure
answer that
all
question.
students are represented in situations like this?
Now Noor has some questions that's been posted up.
Students are giving, but the student reps aren't
Before
receiving.
the strikes, I actually, as school rep, chaired our latest student staff liaison committee meeting, and the strikes was a big thing that came up within the meeting. We talked about them. We told the lecturers that we do completely support why they're striking. We understand the reasons as to why they're striking, but students need students need to be students need to be aware of what they can get later on. They'll be missing out on so much stuff, especially as a third year history student. We only have 3 hours a week, and I have friends who are missing their only 3 hours a week, and so it's a lot to catch up on. Yeah, it's a lot to catch up on in the long run. So we're just trying to make sure that the schools take that in mind, maybe rewrite exams if they have missed stuff. There's been a lot of talk about reimbursement, so it's just trying to keep the students aware of what's going on. In the future, obviously, we'll take what we've learned from this one and go forward. We'll try and make sure this doesn't happen again, obviously, but if it does come to that, we'll try and just work through it, see what happened last time, see what we can do to improve on the next time, and make sure that hopefully it doesn't last as long and the students can get back to studying and staff can get back to being supported by the whole university.
Next, me?
Yeah, go for it.
So I sympathise with the lecturers' issues. I understand why they're striking. It is a massive nationwide issue. It's not just here at Kent. But I think the students deserve to be compensated for everything they're losing, because ultimately they're not the ones responsible for why this is happening. This is a debate between UCU and UUK. I've helped with, me and Ruth have worked to push the Vice-Chancellor on getting reimbursements for students. I passed policy last Monday that meant students can't be given a mark of a 0 if they miss an in-class test because it's cancelled by a strike. And generally, my focus is on supporting the students in times of need like this. And if there are any future actions, which is potentially the strikes might last until the summer term, I will continue to make sure the students are my priority.
I think it's a really, really tough situation. I really sympathise with lecturers because it is a threat to their livelihood, but also I completely understand undergrads who are concerned about the amount of contact time they're going to miss. You said you're a history student, 3 hours. I'm a music tech student, I have 4 hours. So it all stacks up to quite a few weeks of missed lectures. I somewhat agree with what Stuart says. It is a national issue, and I think at the moment we should be pressuring and directing all of our anger at university management, upper management, and also the bodies that have created these strikes, and really be encouraging them to get around the table. And I think while also recognising that the union probably hasn't done enough to support postgrads, we should really be asking them what they think, because ultimately some of them are GTAs and they're on the lecturer side of this strike, and the union has to represent both. So I think it's really about properly asking students what they want from the union, because I definitely think we could be doing more.
I've got another one. So, will any of you lobby the university for reduced fees or free tuition?
It's worth a try, but it is a national issue, and obviously Theresa May had her announcement that she's going to be reviewing higher education funding, and that's really interesting. I really think we should be actually lobbying the government to lower tuition fees, because ultimately, if you give the university scope to charge, up to a certain amount of money, like who you're kidding? Of course they're going to be wanting that amount of money. So it's definitely worth asking university, but the likely answer is no. So it's really about actually elevating it to that national conversation, and about making sure that Kent Union is at the front of it, because I don't feel like Kent Union is always necessarily the voice that you hear about with national issues like these, and I want to elevate the union to that level to make sure that we are part and the front of that conversation.
Following on from that, if I'm allowed to, is that it is a national issue and the whole country would need to lower their fees at the same time. Because if just Kent does it, it will affect them negatively in the long run, as students will see the degrees as worth less because they are technically free. Now, like James says, it's unlikely the university would ever agree to that. So, while you can lobby to the NUS and tell the NUS we would demand free education, while that is not currently a reality, we should be pressuring the university to be spending as much of their money as physically possible back into the students, back into new spaces, back into new resources, because ultimately we deserve those things.
I think the worst bit was that students who were currently here got charged the extra £250 after bringing in under a contract of £9,000. And I think working towards that and at least helping the students with that, especially if they're a second year, then they've got an extra £500 to pay when that's not the agreement that they came to under the university, is a place to start. And from there we can go further in seeing what we can do as a nation to make it easier for students to pay for university.
Another one is, so what is your opinion on the newly announced review into post-18 education, and what opportunities do you think this would provide to enhance the student experience at Kent?
I didn't quite hear the question. Could you repeat it?
So what is your opinion on the newly announced review into post-18 education, and what opportunities do you think this would provide to enhance the student experience at Kent?
Are you referring to the fees? The Theresa May's review of fees?
Yeah, if you want, I can go to another question if you don't really know what to say about it.
Well, Theresa May talks about fees.
Yeah, are you referring to
Yeah.
Theresa May's freezing of fees?
Yeah.
That's the question.
That's okay. Okay, all right. I think it's a little bit hypocritical for Theresa May of the Conservatives to raise the fees and then go, you know what? Now we're going to review the fees after we've tripled the price and add an extra $250 on top. Honestly, I don't know where it's going to go. My hope is that they're going to review the fees and the fees are going to start slowly ticking down. Though I'm sceptical with a Conservative government in that will ever happen, because they seem to be very pro-marketisation of higher education. I'm ultimately, though, glad that they are looking into fees. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully something positive can come from it.
I know Theresa May also mentioned in her speech, it wasn't just about fees, I've remembered. She also talked about different types of degrees, and I remember different types of education, so bringing apprenticeships to different levels, different institutions, and also I know she initially said her intention was that the £9,000 fees should have gone over 2-year courses, but I somehow don't believe that to be true. There is one thing that did alarm me, though, was about variable pricing for courses. That really concerns me, because you could then start getting a system of degrees being worth more or worth less, so science degrees being charged less and then humanities degrees being charged more. And I think that has a really, really big risk to actually assigning proper values to degrees. I think if the price is going to be changed, it should be absolutely uniform, and we shouldn't be favouring one degree over another. It should be equal. And they should be lower. Let's be real. I agree with Stuart. Absolutely, they should be real.
I feel like it's more she's doing this because last year election student turnout was a lot better, especially in Canterbury. It was amazing what happened, and it sort of put her in a place where she thought she was confident, and now she's not as confident, and it scared her a little bit. And I feel like she's trying to cater more towards the students, but we'll just see whether or not she actually makes well on her promises, or if it's just something to try and get that extra support.
So this is quite a national thing that you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
Let's bring it back more now to Kent and University of Kent. A lot of you have been saying about academic free Wednesdays. A lot of candidates over many election cycles, many years, have tried to make this a thing, and it actually hasn't become so. How do you actually ensure that this might be finally achieved?
I mean, largely it is a thing. I've only had one reported case to me directly about there being a lecture at 4 o'clock on a Wednesday, and I got it moved. Though apparently it's not a formal university policy. It's more of a written agreement. So the plan would probably be to write that into a formal university policy, pass it through the timetabling board up to Education Board.
How easy do you think that will be?
I mean, the schools are largely on board already. Most timetabling tries to make sure Wednesday afternoons are free. Schools generally agree. They try to keep things off Wednesday afternoon. They don't always succeed because of the restrictions on timetabling we have at this university. So realistically, I think reasonably easy.
After talking to a bunch of sports societies about Wednesday, what I found they would want is just to make it easier to move seminars if they have them. So if something is put on Wednesday, I was told a lot of people when they're travelling they have to leave even earlier than the afternoon just to get there on time. And so I'm looking more towards having no compulsory things on a Wednesday, and if you do have seminars, getting it easier for sports and societies members to get them moved to make that Wednesday more free for them, but not having it so nothing's on a Wednesday, because that's not really going to work, but just making it easier for people to move them if they need to.
Is it realistic with 3 years of university to have lectures spread out apart from our Wednesday and not have that Wednesday as an opportunity to have some lectures? I assume that's been the problem that's been going on for these many years.
Yeah, I think I've got to look at it further, obviously, but you've got to start somewhere and look at where you can go, and after seeing what people have said is something that I'm going to try and do to the fullest, even if it's just, say, no lectures from 11 rather than from 1, because then it gives people a lot more time to go, and just starting somewhere and then working to get to a compromise to make it easier for everyone.
What's in your manifesto, James? Do you think it's realistic?
I don't think it's unrealistic. Obviously, I don't know the work that has been done by previous full-time officers, but I think there's kind of a dual element to it, kind of what Becky was alluding to about making sure that actually your timetable, you can move those labs or seminars on a Wednesday. I know that science students always seem to consistently have labs all the time, and it ignores that element. So I know that not everyone is still getting the academic free Wednesday afternoon. I think there's also there's a wellbeing element to academic free Wednesdays and to flexible timetabling, and there's also, we should really be considering part-time students and students with dependents, because they're going to need to have their timetable work around them. It's really tough because the university is quite a big bureaucratic institution, but just because it hasn't been achieved by officers in the past, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep trying. And I definitely think there's definitely more angles we could tackle it from. I don't know if they have, but there's always multiple angles. And the student and the university is very data driven. So if we can really actually prove that this is what students want, the university just eventually bows down anyway. So yeah.
It's a pretty big issue, so I want to delve in a bit more. How may each of you approach it differently? How may you go about it in your way? How would you approach it?
So mine's from a wellbeing point of view. That's why I called it Wildcard Wednesdays, because it's not just about being academic free, it's about actually being able to have the opportunity to look after your own wellbeing, or if you want to get a part-time job or have work on that day, or just attend wellbeing events. So I really want to attack it from a wellbeing perspective, because I don't think that's something that's ever kind of been it's ever been approached in that way. And I know that the university is very proud of its wellbeing, although there is more work that can be done. But I know the university does kind of really care about students' wellbeing in that way. So I'd like to tackle it from that angle.
Becky, different angle for you?
I think going down and talking to all the sports clubs and societies, getting actual data of this many students have said this many students have said this. When talking to societies and clubs, they said they do have people drop out very close to the beginning because they just can't keep up with the workload. If I can go and say, look what's happening, no one's getting a rounded university experience. People are missing out because they can't keep up with all the work. And actually go to university and give them all this information. I like getting information. Getting common rooms from my school, I sat for a week and took pictures and notes every hour to try and get solid, hard evidence. If I can do that with sports and societies and show them physically what's happening, then maybe they'll be like, oh, maybe we should actually try this and change.
Stuart, you've been in the VP education role throughout this year.
Yeah.
How has it been a struggle for you, and maybe why have you not achieved this this year?
It wasn't on my manifesto last year. There's a wider issue around timetabling and spaces, is that the fact that things are booked on a Wednesday morning is because the university physically can't not book those on a Wednesday because they have no other time slots available. There are some other factors there as well, but basically to move it from a clear Wednesday, you'd have to move it to a Saturday, and I do not want to start proposing teaching on a Saturday. That seems dangerous. So really, the university needs to revamp its current spaces up to purpose, build more spaces so that there is more availability, so that they can have a more flexible timetable. That is how I'm approaching flexible timetabling, because it's been an issue I've been working on this year. And I want more flexible timetabling, especially for, as James mentioned, the mature students with dependents. They have a real issue with how late the timetable comes out. I've done a survey, and I'm currently writing a paper to a board about what we found out in the survey about how timetables can be better when students want their timetables. So we'd have to tackle it by building more buildings, unfortunately.
Everyone agree with that?
I think that's one approach, and I don't disagree with it, but I think it's multifaceted, so could definitely approach it from different angles. Because some people might not want teaching on a Saturday, but others might, like especially I think people with dependents or whatever, and part-time students, they could want that. I'm not saying they do, but I think it's all those things are worth exploring, or extending the learning day are other things that should be looked at.
I have looked at those, and the student surveys say they don't want to extend the working day. They don't want to. All the results I got were predominantly they don't want to be taught later than 6. That's why I did the survey, because I wasn't sure what the answer would be, because I probably would be happy to be taught till 7 or 8, but I wanted to make sure.
Okay, we'll open up to the audience in a second. Thank you very much for your responses, but we'll go to Noor for one last question.
All right, so we're going to move on and talk student representatives. Firstly, what do you intend to do to resolve the low student rep engagement and to make students more aware of student reps?
There was a really there's an interesting representation review that happened for GK Unions, which is the partnership between Greenwich and Kent Unions and Medway, and there was something really interesting that came out of that, and it suggested appointed student reps. And so it was to treat them more like as a job description rather than just necessarily democratic, because if people aren't engaging in democracy, then it just falls, and then there's no one to kind of fill that space. So it suggested having a kind of a neutral job description, and then getting people put forward by lecturers and then appointing them that way. Because I think that's a really interesting and different approach, and other student unions have achieved a higher success rate in getting student reps in that way. Because especially if you make an application process and you kind of get out an interview style thing out of the applicant, they could be more willing to engage. So I think that's a really interesting alternative to running an election.
I mean, I sort of stumbled on my school rep role. It just sort of came up on the email the day before saying it was closing, and apply. I applied for school rep straight away, and I got the job. And I think history is a bit different. I've got almost a full set of student reps who I work with within the School of History, which is amazing. And we've got both our academic societies as a representative from each on our school rep system. And I think it's trying to just get the advertising out there constantly. The red hoodies are great because people see them. I feel like you need to just try and cater towards students and be like, this is happening tonight, come along to this event, see what school reps do, have a chat, have you talked to your school rep, have you talked to your student reps, do you know who they are? Starting off fresh, like starting with freshers events, getting people to know it, so then next year they'll understand who they are. It means that they know who their school and student reps are from the get-go, so they know who to talk to, but then come a year later they'll understand the system and go from there and want to apply for themselves. I think it's starting off early, make sure people understand who the reps are, and then people will be more likely to apply.
Can you repeat the question so I make sure I answer it correctly?
So what do you intend to do to resolve the low student rep engagement and to make students more aware of their student reps?
Ultimately, I want to pay them. I've been doing some research. So the student reps have been a focus of mine this year. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how the system is currently, thinking about what its shortcomings, what's good about it, how we can improve it. And I was doing some research around other student unions, and some student unions have started moving towards paying their student reps, at least the upper echelons of their student reps, such as their school and faculty reps. And their engagement has gone way up because the school and faculty reps actively encourage better engagement from the lower student reps because they are paid to do so. It's now in their interest to spend more time doing it. Currently, if you're a school rep and your reps don't want to engage with you, there's very little you can do beyond repeatedly messaging them, and it gets incredibly frustrating and it's not good. But if you pay them for their time, then if they're chasing and nothing's happening, at least they're getting paid for it, and that will encourage them to keep doing it. And it gives them responsibility. If you're getting paid to do a job, you will do the job. So ultimately, I think you have to pay them. Honestly, after all the research I've done, paying them.
But I don't think paying school reps like you said that like school reps now will message their reps and bug them, and they'll get nothing back. Like paying them isn't going to get more feedback.
But it will get engagement from school and faculty reps, who are the first stepping stone on that rep ladder. Because without them, the VP education cannot communicate effectively with their schools. School reps have a good branching knowledge of their schools and the problems going within it. They're what we need to focus on to get right first, and then after that, we can focus on the student rep echelons lower.
But as you say, like, if reps aren't feeding back to their schools, their school reps, then they're not getting the feedback that you get given. So you're not engaging the people who are actually on the ground to give the feedback to school reps. So it should be the other way around, because it's the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 reps who give all the information to the school reps to then go upwards. So paying a school reps is pointless, because they'll go, well, I'm getting paid, I message them, I'm done, I've got my money, thank you very much, and then it's just a waste of students' money. I wouldn't necessarily see that as a good spend of money.
I mean, the goal one day would be to pay all of them an amount. Some universities do it by they bring them in for 2 hours a week. They do 2 hours a week of work. Maybe it's going out to get electives and feedback. Maybe it's emailing a bunch of people. Maybe it's just going to a meeting. And their engagement has gone up. For all the research I've done, every institution that has instituted some sort of money reward into their student rep system, their engagement has improved. So it's at least if it's not something to change to, it's something to definitely look at.
Have you got any sayings? You stuck in the middle. If you had to pick a side, even if you wanted to pick a side, who would you be on?
Oh my God, that's...
Even if you might have your own opinion.
Well, I'm thinking of my experiences as school rep this year, because that was the role. And although it would be nice to get paid, I do agree with James in the fact that it's just like, what if you've done all the work and they're not replying to you, but you're still getting paid? I go to a job to do the work, and I have a manager on my case making sure I do the work. And I've seen how much my faculty rep struggles to get us engaged. And then we've got to try and get our school reps engaged. I feel like everyone's got to know what their role is and where they are before you even start introducing getting paid. You need to develop from the bottom down, make sure everyone knows who the school reps are, make sure school reps and student reps feel confident in talking to their students, and making sure they actually feel okay with approaching random people they've never met before, going to lectures, going to socials. I felt terrified going to the first history social where I barely knew anyone. You need to make sure you build up their confidence to get them to talk to people, and then we can see a change from that.
All right, thanks for those responses. Now it's an opportunity for the audience and the floor here in the pavilion to pose any questions to our candidates this evening for education. Are there any takers at all? Yep.
I just wanted to talk about the fact that you talked about the fact that you ran a survey this year about free Wednesdays. I personally would really love to have filled out that survey I didn't know existed. I'm a part-time student, I'm a postgraduate student, I'm a disabled student, and I really wish that I had the opportunity to do that. So here's a question for all candidates. The digital rep system is a great idea. It's a great chance for you to get feedback from us, the entire university student population, what we want. How are you going to promote it more, and how are you going to use it more? Because at the moment, no one knows it exists. So,
first of all, I think it's in my manifesto actually as one of my points about removing barriers, because digital rep, I agree with you, is a really fantastic idea. But it's really, really difficult to fill out some feedback. Like, I remember one of my friends is a sports student, and she had something to say. I was like, oh, I'll help you fill digital rep. And I was so confused as to how actually to get some feedback in. So it just kept on asking me questions and then kept on taking me back. And I was going forward, and I wasn't actually sure if I was ever actually going to submit my feedback. So it's definitely about actually making sure that tool works effectively. And then promoting it, I think we could perhaps use the money that we might want to pay school reps to promoting the digital rep, because I think that's better spent in gathering more feedback rather than just paying a couple of people. So yeah, it should be promoted more. We should be disseminating it through our schools, through our lecturers as well. So I know some of our lecturers, all the module conveners don't necessarily like some of the course that they're disseminating, so they should be encouraging students, or even about a classroom. Yeah.
I feel like, following from James's point about making it easier to fill in, school reps and student reps also need it to be easier for them to look at on the back end of it. Because I find it so much easier just to talk to students. I go to my next student staff liaison committee meeting, I tell the school what's happened, I tell the union what's happened. I don't fill out digital rep because I don't like it. I had to get feedback for a library user panel. I looked at it, I had no idea what it said. I printed it off, I had to make it all, the format completely different just so I could read the actual information I had. And I feel like once digital rep looks better on the background and we can actually decipher it properly, then school and student reps will start using it more, start advertising it more, because it's much an easier way of getting loads of students to say what they want. But it's just not helpful in the moment. We need to develop it and then advertise it.
Yeah, and also can I just add, it's also about closing the loop. People submit their feedback and it's gone. Like they don't know what's happening with it. You know, something might have happened, but the person who fills out the feedback doesn't necessarily know that anything's been done with it. So it's also then about informing the student or the group of students or the school reps or the student reps about actually, hey, look, this is what your digital rep did. Yay!
Confirmation email.
Yeah.
Stuart, chance to
There's lots about digital rep. Me and the Kent Union staff have been working on digital rep this year because it's only its second year of implementation, and the lack of a sabbatical after last year meant that it wasn't probably as pushed as hard as it should have been, and we lacked staff at the beginning of this term to help push it as well. I did it with my reps. I told all my school reps to do it, but I can only get so far. Yes, it is a good idea. It is fundamentally a little bit flawed. It's always bothered me that you can't just get the data as a school rep, but that is due to that we have to redact all the names from it, so that with no lecturers getting attacked unfairly or being pointed out and going, you're terrible, because that would be bad for them, bad for the students. We are implementing what you said we did feature on Digital Rep soon. And I've been looking at the categories that you have to fill in and how many steps it takes, because it is a lot. It's like 15 or something to get all the way through if you put positive and negative. Yeah, there's a lot of work still to be done, but the idea is good, and I will continue to work on it as I have done this year.
Okay, I hope that answers your question. Next question, please. Yep.
This is a question fairly sort of pointed at Stuart, but also the other candidates. On your manifesto progress, it says you've supported the School of Music and Fine Arts students during the closure of their school, and obviously the transition into CMAT, the Centre for Music and Audio Technology. I'm just, as an SMFA student, I'm curious to hear what support you've actually given to students, and also to the other candidates. What do you propose support-wise to students that aren't necessarily following on to courses in the CMAT? So for myself, the event management course, our facilities are slowly being cut and our teaching hours are slowly being cut. How do you propose to support through that?
So it shouldn't say on the website because I have not done that. What I said to the marketing team was the situation from when I was running from when I started changed. Rory briefed me on the situation, and it had changed since my election, and it had improved significantly from where it was in the chaos that was March. Regarding your teaching spaces, I have been defending the SMFA teaching spaces because I am involved in the meetings that talk about your specialist facilities and whether to give them to computing or not. And I was like, can you at least wait until the students have finished their degrees, and then maybe we can give them to computing? Because obviously you guys need specialist facilities for your music and fine arts students. Truthfully, that's all I have done regarding that, but I've not had enough time to dedicate resources to it specifically.
You say in your manifesto a lot, and you bring up this word of space quite a lot. Is it all about space? Does that education come down to how much space there is in a certain building, or how many seats you can get in a certain place?
I think
or space for equipment as such?
Space is intrinsic to the student experience. Without good quality spaces, we're not going to have good quality teaching. The amount of complaints that I hear about lecture theatres and seminar rooms, how they're not well maintained, they're scummy, they're horrible, they're cold. You can't learn in a freezing cold environment. It's really hard to interact with your peers without dedicated spaces within schools. It's hard to really associate yourself with your school, with your academics, learn from them on a more casual basis if you don't have any mutual space, any group areas you can use.
Okay, James, do you want to jump in on this?
I don't necessarily. I mean, obviously, I agree with Stuart to an extent that space is important, but it's definitely not all about space. There is so much more to the education role, and I think we're selling it slightly short if it was just basically space master and room master. We're not builders. I think it's more also about, I say a lot in my manifesto, about anonymous marking, about making sure lecturers have office hours, more support in your year abroad and after graduating, free coffee during exams. So it's also...
Can I stop on that point?
Yeah.
Because now you've brought it up. Free coffee during exams?
Yes.
By my understanding, you can only take water into an exam. So how
So it's
how
not
that
for
happen?
inside the exam, it's so...
It just seems a bit misleading, that's all.
No, obviously I'm not saying have a coffee in your exam. It's more about the build-up to your exam, so you don't want to be really tired before you're going in to have a coffee on your way from Parkwood maybe to the exam hall and all that kind of thing. Lots of universities have, or a few universities have subscribed to it, because mostly it's about well-being and kind of just calming the nerves. It's not just coffee, tea, decaf, whatever you like. Yeah, so no, I think the education role is definitely more than just about space.
Thank you.
I think so. The education role, obviously, it is a lot more than just space. It's a lot more. It's, as vice presidents go, it's one that encompasses all students. There's no specific group you're looking at, so you need to make sure you're catering to every different kind of student, because students are completely different. And I think you need to make sure students have the support they need. It is a bit about space. You need to. It's nice to have a community, it's nice to have a building or a room where subjects can meet up. It's also nice to have support with academic advisors and within the uni with the buddy scheme. There's so many different aspects of university life, and it's hard to just narrow it down to one specific genre.
I don't think the question was actually about...
No, we've kind of...
It wasn't about,
digressed.
is space all you care
Back
about?
to a question in the audience about, if you could remind us again of the...
Essentially, the question was, how do you propose to support students of the SMFA that aren't necessarily going forward into the new programmes and currently having their spaces and also their teaching hours threatened?
So obviously, I was quite involved in the consultation of the SMFA. I worked with the union president to actually retain an extra course in the School of Music and Fine Arts. So there's now actually performance-based music, not just music technology, in the School of Music and Fine Art. And also, I've always expressed my views always to the union president, because I think if you want to get something done, you just take it to the top, and they just can't shake me. I have been whingy and annoying for 2 years about the School of Music and Fine Art, and if elected, I will be the whinger to the university, and there won't need to be a middle person to talk to actually help SMFA students.
I think with any course that is being threatened, there's definitely no reason. You can't cut a course short, you can't take stuff away from them whilst they're still studying. If courses are changing, then they need to wait until the course has run its course. The students have finished their degree, and then change things around. You need to make sure that students are still getting all the things that they need necessary to complete their course to the best of their ability before you even think about changing things. You need to make sure everyone is supported throughout everything.
To answer your question, cool, thank you very much. I've touched on the James and Stuart's manifesto, and Becky, I want to touch on yours. Now, you annihilated my print credits when I was going to print this out. It was 13 pages long. So a lot of ideas there you want to implement, and you've been very involved in sort of a lot of academic things. Does education just boil down to the academic side of things, and are all of your ideas realistic?
Education is definitely not academic, and I think looking at what I do within the university, my degree is a very small part of everything else I do with the union, and I feel like you need to have a rounded life at the university in order to enjoy your university life. And I know it is 13 pages long, but it's all quite big writing, it's quite easy to read, and I think it is about sports, it's about societies, it's about making sure everyone enjoys as much as I've enjoyed everything I do. And I can't remember the second half of your question, I'm so sorry.
Oh, the same. Because the ideas, because you have so many pages, are all the ideas realistic to impose and actually, try and force through to make them happen?
I think they are realistic. I mean, yeah, it's a lot of points, but there's not a lot to my points. They're simple. They're half of my pages are explaining why I want these points to be implemented, why I think things should happen. And I think they are quite simple. It's easy enough to get a room for people to connect with in a school. I think it's easy enough to help postgrads out with getting their timetables concise. It's easy enough to change the Medway buses to half past the hour to save people running to try and get them before and after lectures. It's simple enough to change these things. I just think someone's got to go out of their way to do it.
Thank you very much, Carl. Don't forget, if you're watching at home and obviously you can't see the manifestos in the audience, you haven't taken a look at them yet, you can head on over to the Kent Union website where you can view them all, where they'll go through their points more. Any more? One more question from the audience, please. Yes, at the front here.
So I was a part-time officer last year. I was the whole science faculty representative, and I worked directly with student reps, and they said to me, well, one of them, quite a few of them actually, said to me, Tana, we don't feel that we are rewarded for what we do. We do so much for you, and I know they did. Without their help, I wouldn't have achieved half of what I could achieve. So when they said to me, I felt really bad for them. And I said to them, oh, I think it's really bad. I will pass it on. And this year I haven't felt like anything's been done, but I would like to know, how are you going to reward the student reps? Because they do not feel like they're being rewarded and they do so much work.
We haven't got a lot of time to answer it, so if you can spend 30 seconds on each answer, that would be much appreciated.
I've been trying to implement a series of more reward-based events throughout the year for reps to keep them consistently attending events rather than just sort of saying, here, you're elected, off you go represent some people, come back later maybe, and then just leaving it completely. There's no solid ideas yet, but there's a range of things from pizza-based things to just giving them book vouchers, all sorts of ways to reward them like that. Also, they need to be represented more on the Kent Union website. They need to be clearer, up in lights when they achieve things. We have some of their achievements actually on the wall of Essentials at the moment for their active representation. Architecture's done some great work. Science has done some great work. So they are being recognised.
I do totally agree with this. As school rep, it is you do a lot of work and you don't see a lot from it unless you've actually made a common room out of thin air and it's just there. The only recognition I got was when people recommended me for this role and it's like, oh, people actually care about what I'm doing. I think, giving them little rewards, like things every time something happens, they're like, oh, that's amazing. Maybe having a big party at the end of the year, like a gala or an event, just to say, like, thank you so much for all the work you've done, and just making people feel special. That's the way to sort of get it through.
Yep. And finally, James?
I'm quite a fan of the gamification of rewards. So I think encouraging reps to fill out digital rep or like take their student feedback, go to SSL meeting school, have maybe like an assigned points value, and then you can redeem those points for prizes. I think that's kind of an interesting and different kind of way to approach student rep. So it encourages that engagement and then also then rewards it afterwards. So I'd like to look at that.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope that answers your question. Thanks for the questions that were posed by the audience and for listening to the education debate tonight. We're now going to give all of the candidates a final closing statement, their final gambit as to why you should elect them as VP for Education. We'll start off with Becky, please.
Didn't want to go first, so thanks for that. So, thank you for coming today. Really appreciate everyone coming along. I do have quite a lot of manifesto points, but my main four are points, and they're my main four because they're close to my heart. With inclusive learning plans, is there, I have one. Going with dyslexia is hard, and I feel like students do need the support and encouragement they get, and they should have that support. They should feel comfortable in telling staff what they have and how they need help. With my diversifying my curriculum, after doing African history last year, you find out this amazing new history that you've never learned before, and I feel like every student should have that opportunity. That course influenced me in doing the dissertation I am doing in the Igbo people of Southeast Nigeria, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity if I hadn't have done that course. My work as school rep has made me so much, it's fulfilled me so much more. It's actually what got me into this role, working, doing a student staff social, which actually was quite successful, working towards a common room this year, seeing the results, seeing happy student and staff, and actually like talking to them on a face-to-face basis is what made me want to be in this role. And finally, I feel like students do need more support within both the university and the union. Our academic advice scheme is quite poor, and I feel like we need to develop things like the buddy system, make sure people know where to go, who to talk to, and I feel like it will just make a better community throughout the whole university in general. Obviously, I can't talk about all my manifesto points, so you can go on the Kent Union website or come on my Facebook page. And thank you all so much for listening, and back Becky for VP of Education.
Stuart, please.
Cool. So, over my year as a sabbatical officer, I've noticed a lack of high-quality student spaces available, as we have already discussed. We need more non-commercialised spaces on campus so students can have a productive environment to learn. We need more high-quality study spaces. We need a louder student voice when it comes to building new study spaces. Simpson shouldn't have 6 seminar rooms in it. It's massive. It should have more. We should make sure that students aren't walking across campus for consecutive lectures and they have high-quality facilities within their own buildings. And we should make sure that students aren't taught for longer than 4 hours without a break, as is bad for learning. As Becky said, inclusive learning plans are also important. They're also on my manifesto. And I plan on carrying on my work to get the university to be more transparent about where your fees go. I've made some good progress this year. Not quite there, it's quite a long project. The university are very reluctant, but I'm getting there. The role of VP Education is an incredibly demanding and enjoyable one. It takes a long time to fully learn the intricacies of the university and the union structures. Don't waste my experience when I'm only just getting started. Everything I've discussed this evening is on the Kent Union website, on Manifesto. Please take some time to look at it, and remember, Stuart supports student spaces.
And finally, James, please.
Cool. So thank you very much for lending us your ears this evening. I know sometimes question times can't be the most exciting thing to spend your Monday evening on. I know I would definitely going to be getting a drink after this. So it's really exciting to kind of actually think that one of us sat here is going to be your next VP Education. I think it's time for fresh leadership for the union. I want to. Sorry, Clara, but you're leaving, so it's fine. I want to achieve a lot, and I think some of the stuff that we've covered today is really interesting about student reps, about tuition fees, about the UCU strike. So these are all really good national issues that I want to bring the union to the forefront with. I've also talked about academic Wednesdays, digital rep and the SMFA, and I want to make sure that student reps are more valued, digital rep is better, and the SMFA is definitely supported through its transition. In terms of my manifesto, I've got a lot of points that you can read up on, but again, my top ones are flexible timetabling, teaching the university how to do yoga with your degree, anonymous marking, which is incognito mode for your degree, and online chat help, because again, you shouldn't really need a doctorate in order to navigate a website so you know where to go pick up your next student ID card. So thank you very much. Please talk to me. I'll be talking to you. Come and find me, and let's feel the burns for VP Education.
Thanks everyone for coming in and feeling, and everyone watching on KTV. We'll be hearing from the activities debate next.
So what is a union to you? If there's something about the university that I don't like, that I want to change, I can go to the union. It's also a place where I can feel like I'm part of a community by joining societies.
Well, the union actually we joined not too long ago as a community action group, STAG, and they gave us loads of information on what we need to do.
To me, union's a body that should represent all the students in the university and make sure that our requirements are heard, and they form a voice that they can provide all the needs and everything for us and make sure that we have a good time here, really.
Kent Union is a registered charity of which all students become members at enrolment.
Kent Union is the voice of all students who study here at the University of Kent. Kent Union's role is to make the student experience at Kent better.
Every year, 5 students are elected as full-time sabbatical officers.
The Vice President of Education, the Vice President of Sport,
Vice President of Activities, Vice President of Welfare,
and the Kent Union President, alongside part-time officers.
So there's education, welfare, sport, activities, and the president as sabbatical officers. What can they do to improve your time at university?
Make the students the priority.
I feel like each one of them can do something in different ways. So like sports, for example, they can try and make it more accessible to everyone, especially with the gym.
For the education, maybe they can provide us with more resources.
So, who are the sabbatical officers?
The Education Officer is responsible for enhancing the educational opportunities of the student body across all University of Kent campuses. They'll often propose campaigns to better our academic experience, such as the lecture capture.
The Activities Officer is responsible for supporting student societies and student media, excluding sports teams. They'll work with societies in achieving their goals and are responsible for society memberships.
The Welfare Officer is responsible for all non-academic cares that students have: housing, mental health and equality. At Kent, they work alongside Home Stamp and the Advice Centre.
The sports officer is responsible for anything related to sports at the University of Kent. This includes supporting the sports clubs, helping run varsity, and are responsible for all the sports memberships.
Finally, your Kent Union President oversees Kent Union as a whole, ensuring each officer is able to uphold their goals and, more importantly, are the key representatives and voice of the entire student body of the University of Kent.
Did you know that there are part-time officers in the union?
Yes, I've heard about them, yeah. So like accommodation and stuff, right?
Yeah. To do with like social issues as well. But what can they do to like make themselves more well known?
By advertising, doing information sessions, being out here like we are right now. I don't know, just letting people know.
I mean, if they just try and get the points across of what they stand for and how they're going to help us, we obviously will be willing to find out, really.
Part-time officers are entrusted with upholding the rights and being the voice for a specific group of students at the university campuses. A full list of roles can be found on the Kent Union website linked above.
As a student, you are part of the union.
And you have an absolute right to choose who represents you.
So, the union site says that the manifestos of the students running for the SAB are out. What are even manifestos? How do they concern me? Bill, please explain.
Philip, it's a very good question. Well, manifestos are campaign promises candidates make during a democratic election process. In the case of our university, they are reflective of the posts that candidates running for full-time offices. At the end of the day, they are the criteria that we use as voters to cast our ballot.
Well, that works for me. But what do I have to look out for when reading them?
Well, that's a really good question, Philip. So the first thing I do is to take your time when going through it. It's always worth it as a voter. You'll be surprised to find candidates speak about the issues that you are passionate about.
So like my student experience?
Exactly. Anyway, here are a few tips on reading manifestos. Number 1, look out for concrete goals. They're probably ones that candidates will be most interested in working with. Number 2, if you don't have much time, look in their manifestos and look for their 3 main policies. Number 3, be realistic when choosing a candidate. They may have a policy that may be fantastic, but it's unrealistic. So always take realism into perspective when choosing a candidate. Lastly, trust your own instincts. Everyone has their own agenda. Make sure you base your decision on your own.
And remember, you are part of the union. You have the right to choose who represents you. So, the union site says that the
And welcome back out of the ad breaks on KTV, but obviously a nice drink break and food break here in the pavilion. We're here for the leadership elections debates this evening, and we've just had the education debate. You can go back and watch that if you're watching on the live stream on KTV. We're also now going to move on to the activities debate, which there are 6 of them. So I'm going to have to make their answers shorter and all that and squeeze it in, but hopefully we'll get to hear from them as much as in proportion as the education guys. And again, we'll have Norm in the audience with us taking questions from social media, which you can get involved in on our Facebook. Just type some comments on there and we'll pass them through. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, you can comment on there as well. Don't forget to tweet at Kent_TV as well. Norm.
Great, thank you. So, as Jake just said, if you do have any questions, comment them on the live stream. And now we'll be cutting to the showcase of the activities candidates.
I'm Beth and I'm running for VP Activities. My main point is building a sense of community on campus as well as raising awareness for access to activities for students with disabilities. It's really, really important to vote for every single sabbatical position and not just one vote. You need to vote for your first, your second, your third, fourth, however many people are running. It's really important that you actually think about the decision. #believe in Beth.
Douglas Cole, and I'm running for VP Activities. My main point on Manifesto is making running societies easier by increasing the development fund, increasing the startup fund, reducing room booking times to 2 days and external speaker booking times to 1 week, and having better advertising for society events around campus. Students should vote for me because I have a lot of experience of being a society president, a disabilities officer, a social secretary, a part-time officer, vice president of King's College, and I sit on the society executive. Go far with Carr.
I am Emily Keast and I'm running for Vice President Activities. My main point of my manifesto is to maximise student involvement in Kent Union. Kent Union can really enhance your student experience and I want to make sure everyone gets the opportunity for that to happen. Even if you don't think Kent Union directly affects you, it does. It's a massive part of student life and it can really help you get the best out of your student experience, so you should definitely go out there and vote and #CountOnKeast.
Hi, I'm Christian DeVito and I'm running to be VP Activities. My main point of my manifesto is about making committees work better, so that's through better training, online banking and a variety of other measures. If you aren't thinking of voting this year's elections, then make sure you do. If you don't vote, then your voice won't be heard at Kent. #DoVoteToVeto for VP Activities.
My name's Megan Hewitt and I'm running for VP Activities. My main point of my manifesto is to appreciate our volunteers at Kent more. As a volunteer myself, I believe it's really important that we recognise all the hard work they do. I would love if you guys could follow my campaign and get involved, and also #put your hands up for Hewitt.
My name is Sasha Langeveld and I'm running for VP Activities. So my main point of my manifesto actually comes into 3 different categories, but the main line is community, culture and change. So I just want to bring the community, have loads of culture and eventually bring change. You have to be the change that you want to see in the world, and if you're not active in that change then you won't get anything done. So, you know, come to the voting stations and vote for your next VPs and presidents. And my hashtag is ThinkSasha.
Hopefully that show reel gives you a bit of an idea as to get to know your candidates a bit more. And of course we're here at the debate tonight with Christian, Emily, Doug, Sasha, Beth over there and Megan on the end. Each candidate again will have 1 minute to have their say as to why you should elect them as VP Activities. This time we're going to go from right to left, so we're going to start with Megan, please.
Hi, I'm Megan, a third-year philosophy student who lived in Turin during my first year. If you hadn't guessed it already, then I'm leopard print obsessed, which is why I chose to use it for my campaign. The role of societies and KCA groups is something I'm passionate and proud of, and wish I had been better informed of as a fresher. As someone who isn't hugely into the drinking culture, I struggled to find my place at university, which had a direct impact on my mental health, resulting in me almost failing and dropping out during first year. My roles within the activities sector have included being a general committee member for Canterbury Homeless Outreach, being president of Stage Spiders, being on the KCA exec, and also successfully running a student-led project at a special needs school. You can read my manifesto online, however my main 3 points are to reduce the room booking times by utilising spaces we already have, validating our volunteers because I know how great they are, and finally setting up a sister society system to connect the Kent and Medway campuses to make us feel more like one. I look forward to any questions you may have, and let's put our hands up for Hewitt. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, next, please.
Hi, I'm Beth, and I've only been part of one society technically, and it was KTV. I was extremely disappointed with my degree in my first year and pretty much wanted to drop out of uni, and the only reason that I stuck around was for KTV. So I've been a committee member, and I'm currently station manager of it. So I've experienced organising activities for members, running public events and managing the budget. And I've also held down a part-time job for my entire 3 years here. I know how time-consuming but rewarding your activities are to you. So there are so many improvements that I would like to implement this year to make your society and getting involved so much easier. From more awareness around campaigns and better communication and transparency from your union, to creating a community you will love to be a part of. There is so much I want to tell you about and not enough time to tell you in this speech. Through the questions you give to me and my closing speech, I'm going to give you so many reasons to believe in Beth. Thank you.
And Sasha, next please.
So my name is Sasha Langeveld. My 3 main points in my manifesto are community, culture and change. So here at Kent, I've actually just participated in varieties of societies, the Palestinian Society, ACS Society. I'll continue to participate in many societies because I'm a firm believer in community. So as you're aware, this week is online campaigning, and that means manifestos have dropped. My team and I have worked very hard to 2 a.m. in the library, and we're very proud of all the achievements that we have done and will continue to achieve this week with the support of all of you guys. So I'm really excited to see how the debates will go and what you guys have to say in regards to our manifestos and what I can learn from this. So yeah, vote for Sasha. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Douglas. When I came to university, I was shy, I was worried about making friends, and I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. But then I went to Freshers' Fair, and I found a ton of societies and community action groups I wanted to get involved in. I was elected as Disabilities Officer for Kent Labour Students my first year, and I also helped to set up a campaign called Kent Cut the Rent, where we campaigned to reduce on-campus accommodation prices. In my second year, I was President of the Student Assembly Against Austerity Society, and this year, I'm Vice President of Kent College, Vice President of King's College, Ethics Officer for Kent Union, and I sit on the Society's executive as the Political and Campaigning Forum representative. I've served in a lot of positions, and that's helped me to see there's a lot of challenges that society committees and other committees face to run the events that they want, and there's a lot of barriers to participation. I want to use my position to give more funding to the Access to Activities Fund, more funding for the Development Fund and the Startup Fund. I want to reduce the external speaker policy from 4 weeks to 1 week and room booking time from 7 days to 2 days. And I want to work with liberation groups to make sure that we have a zero tolerance policy for discrimination at our activities, and to work with them as well to investigate how we can get students from marginalised backgrounds to get more involved with activities as well.
Okay, thank you, Doug.
Hi, my name's Emily Keast. I'm a 4th year forensic science student, and I've been heavily involved with Kent Union from my first year at university. I work in the library cafe. I've worked as a welcome helper for 3 years. I've logged over 500 volunteer hours throughout my 3 years volunteering with Kent Union. I was the Kent Dance competition coordinator in my second year, and I'm currently the president of Kent Dance. My main manifesto point is to maximise student involvement, and I aim to doing this by securing funding to make activities more financially accessible to all students, creating a buddy scheme for societies to help individuals who are a little more nervous to join a society, and to increase the rewards and recognition for volunteers and society members, whilst making them aware of how society involvement can benefit your future career.
My name is Christian.
Hi, I'm Christian DeVito, and I'm the designer of VP Activities. I've been involved in a wide range of activities. I'm currently the president of Canterbury Homeless Outreach and the treasurer of the UKC LGBT Society. When I first came to university, I was quite shy and quite reserved. I found Freshers' Fair quite overwhelming, and Kent Union website was horrible really to use to try and get involved. That's what the focus of my manifesto is, around making activities more accessible to all, such as clear information, monthly society fairs in the plaza, and the student hub in Medway. because I think that the things you do outside of your degree are the things you're going to remember out of your university experience. So it should be as easy as possible for anyone to get involved with those. Thank you.
Thank you all for your opening statements. Now, I want to jump in and throw a question for activities. I hope you give you a better idea about, personally, the candidate's journey through university and so forth. So, can you each tell me about your experience of being part of a student-led group at Kent and how that has inspired you to run in this election? Christian, you'd like to start us off?
Being part of a student-led group and how that's inspired me to run?
Yes.
So I've been president of Canterbury Campus Outreach for the last year, which is quite a large volunteering society at Canterbury campus. And through this I've experienced quite a lot of problems with Kent Union, which I think could be quite easy to fix, which would make it a lot easier for people to get involved. So through the problems that I've encountered, I've developed solutions to make it easier for people to get involved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thoughts to go next?
So the main student group I've been involved in is obviously Kent Dance. It inspired me to run because I've seen like the friendships that have formed and the memories that I've made and the people who are around me have made in the society. And I think that every student at the university deserves the opportunity to be involved in a society, to make those memories and make those friends. And I'm hoping that in the position, if elected, that's something that I can really implement, getting people involved to have the great student experience that I've had in a society.
Yeah, so as I said, in my second year I was president of the Student Assembly Against Austerity, which is like a campaigning society, and through that society I was able to lead protests around the country for free education, we were boycotting the NSS, and also against fascist marches that were taking place in Dover and London and so on. And that basically, getting to take part in loads of political campaigning societies gave me a voice, and also helped me to empower other students to have a voice as well. So I really feel like a lot of students don't have the same kind of experience that I did. You know, I really got to thrive through society, I got to find myself, I got to develop myself personally. There's a lot of barriers to participation, like buying equipment for different societies or physical activity societies in general. So I just want to use my position basically to let every other student have the same experience that I did, because I gained so much from taking part in activities, but I think everyone else deserves the same opportunity that I did.
Tasha?
So, first year was quite a difficult time for me, like in a lot of personal challenges. So I kind of isolated myself throughout first year and I didn't get as involved as I could have. So I kind of thought to myself, university is kind of what you make of it. So if you don't put yourself out there, or if things don't come to you and you take the opportunities, then you kind of just get lost in the whole system. So after my first year, I just got involved more in second year, and I led the protest against in the awakening of what happened with Black History Month in 2016, and through that it kind of gave me my voice of what I want to do with the uni. And it's not that I've been involved with like one community. I've been involved with many people, and they've come up to me and been like, you know, you'd be really good to like run for the union. I know that I give them a lot of shade, but I think that if I were to make it in, then I could personally help people overcome challenges that they come, and getting more engaged with the uni and create more of a community instead of segregated like individual societies, because I think that is also such a challenge that people have at uni. So, yeah.
Beth?
So obviously being a part of KTV, especially over the past year, has given me a huge opportunity to meet lots of different societies and lots of different communities. And the thing that actually inspired me to run was Disability History Month this year. Working on that was incredibly eye-opening and quite shocking, to be honest, with lack of publicity for it, lack of knowledge of it, and pretty much ever since those events, and disability is one of my main events, ever since I've just noticed so much about how difficult it is for people with disabilities to actually get involved with activities. And obviously there are so many other issues as well, but that was my inspiration for running.
I think being part of the student group has really made me feel like I belong, and it's given me a place to make friends and to find similar people to me. So I would just say giving more people that opportunity and really giving light to the smaller societies that people might not necessarily know.
We'll come to Norton now. I believe you've got some questions.
Yeah. So, first question is, do you believe that sports clubs, societies, Kent Community Action and student media are currently equally represented?
Who wants to come on first?
You take this.
Okay. Obviously, being on the KCA exec, I see how the KCA groups are viewed in compared to the sport. I would say there's a massive difference between society and sports at Kent. Quite prominent at the moment is the Acitivities ball and the Team Kent ball. There's a lot more money that goes into Team Kent than that goes into the societies and activities we have, and I really think that that's something that needs to be changed. We should all be viewed equally. Just because you don't play a sport doesn't mean that you should be any less appreciated on campus. So yeah, I definitely think that that's an issue that needs to be addressed.
Anyone? Yeah, okay. So I'll just go next. So I would agree. But when it comes to also like talking about societies, we can't just talk about societies in general, because within societies there's actually underfunded societies. Like I would say more cultural societies are less funded than, say, for example, MUN or large debating societies. And I would definitely agree that sports gets more sponsorships from like external people, and societies is quite strange that it has more people but it has less funding, and I think more money should be put, or at least equal money should be put in societies as to sports, with the same with volunteering and all the other ones.
Christian, by yourself?
Sports obviously have a bigger representation on campus, I think, because they have a lot of weekly matches, and sports have high commitment levels. They do a lot of training and stuff, so they spend more time together, they have strong community. I think more networking between societies would help to make more big events happen, which would increase their representation on campus.
Anyone else have anything to add?
Yeah. This year I've been on the Societies Executive, and part of that role is approving applications to the Development Fund. And so there's a lot of societies. So the question was, are societies, community action groups and so on treated equally? One of my manifesto points is that I want to have there to be transparency between the funding that sports clubs get and societies get. Also, a lot of societies themselves within that realm aren't treated equally, because the Development Fund, we're more likely to approve it if it's something that will develop the society in the long term. But what that means is basically something that the society can reuse. For some societies, basically the way that they thrive are the trips that they go on, speakers that they bring down, and these things cost money. And that actually really does develop a society, because I wouldn't have become president of the society I did become if I didn't get to go on a protest in my first year, and they didn't receive any money for that. But that really developed a society. It's why we had a full committee the next year.
So yeah, I agree. I don't think that all the groups you mentioned are equal. I think a massive thing is facilities. So I know there's a few societies who struggle to get space, but we have so much space here in the sports centre, here and over in the sports centre, that could be utilised by societies, but because they're not held in the same sort of view as the sports teams, the societies don't have access to them. I also think that student media, the only reason that I know so much about student media is from being on a society committee. I think regular students perhaps don't know the full extent to what KTV, Inquire and CSR actually offer.
Anyone disagree with anyone's responses, or maybe has a slightly different opinion?
But can I answer the original question?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think, I agree with pretty much everyone's points for this, but there is a huge lack of attention brought to smaller and newer societies within Kent Union. And I know this from actually meeting them in the past week, and I've had a lot of feedback saying that trying to keep their societies afloat, trying to get funding, trying to get members, trying to get committee members for next year has been the most challenging thing, because they're so small and because they're not represented as well as maybe some of the bigger societies. And as for student media, I actually think you might be right with that normal students don't particularly know, but that's branching out.
As you've come on to funding, I mean, a big issue that everyone brings up, and it's of course the main thing is all about money. Is there money to fund things? How do you propose to increase funding for these smaller societies? Is it about sharing funding out more equally with bigger societies, or should it be done proportionally to how long that society's been going? What do you think?
I definitely don't think it should be how long a society's been going, because a society could start up 1 year and just because they're new, it's not fair that they should get less money than a society that's been going for much longer. Don't actually think it should be proportional to the members either, because as you mentioned, like smaller societies struggle to get the membership income, so they should perhaps be given more money than the larger societies who have more income from membership fees.
Anyone else? Yeah?
I would say similar to Emily. The size of the society really shouldn't make a difference, because like small societies which might make like 10 people's university experience enriched just as much benefit as like a bigger society which has a lot more members. It's really hard to measure the value of how much the society is helping students, and like every society, regardless of the size, still is really important to people's university lives, so they should all be valued.
I agree with that, but to some certain extent, like kind of the proportion of a society, we would be foolish to ignore that, say, a society that has so many members should like receive the same funding to a smaller society when there's clearly more members. But then again, that doesn't defer from the point that the smaller society shouldn't get equally funded. But I feel like, so I actually had a meeting with Kent Union, and I was talking about the possibilities of getting external funding, the same that sports do. So what I was thinking, but there would be issues doing it with home stamp, because I was suggested that we go to student-led agencies, because we have the majority of students in societies. If we offer them exposure, then they can support our
So you're talking
society.
sponsorship?
Yeah, I'm talking about sponsorships. So I think if sports can do it, then why can't activities? But obviously there's the question of how we would do that, and who are we actually going to clash when we do that. So that's also something that we have to think about.
Do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, leading on from that, a massive part of my manifesto is also about sponsorship. From my own experience over the past year, it is incredibly hard to get sponsored by people in town, people on campus. It's incredibly difficult because there are constant compromises and conflict of interest and everything like that, and it's really hard to get an answer from the union as to yes, you can be sponsored by this person, but no, you can't be sponsored by that person, and you never actually get a clear answer as to why not that person and why yes, that person. So part of my manifesto is that there's transparency there. You know who you can be sponsored by and you know who you can't be sponsored by.
Anyone want to answer that? Because it's quite a big topic.
I can answer the question.
I would propose that it's not all about money. I think actually if we raise more awareness of these smaller societies, then they would gain more members, which would in itself gain more money, which is why one of my points is to do something called Society in 60 Seconds, which would be allowing groups a 60-second promotional video of themselves free of charge to help those less known societies boost themselves on the union website, because I think there is funding available. I mean, on the KC exec, I see it, we have a pot of money, but people don't know about it. So I think, one, it's raising awareness that we have this money that people can apply for, and also raising awareness of the societies themselves to get the members and the money internally.
Has anything else to add?
Yeah, it's basically, obviously we're talking here about which societies, like smaller societies getting less funding, smaller societies don't have as much awareness. One of my manifesto points is that I want us to install electronic boards around campus. I'll advertise society and community action group events and college committee events every evening. It'll just be done, it'll be connected through the room booking system. Also, we're talking about how small societies are getting less funding. The issue is, we have over 200 societies and community action groups. The problem is there isn't enough money. I sit on the society executive. You do have to be very stingent. But the fact is, if I was VP Activities, I'd be demanding from the university a lot more funding for our student groups, because we pay £9,250 to be here. We're not paying just for a degree. We're paying for our student experience. And so we deserve more funding to, to improve our mental health, to improve our graduate prospects through getting involved with activities. And it's not like the university doesn't have the money. They take so much from us tuition fees. They spent £30 million on new economics building, and they're cutting our lecturers' pensions as well. So I think we do have the ability to give all of our societies who are equally legitimate more funding.
Okay, thanks for your responses on that. We'll have one final question from Noor, and then I think we'll go to the audience. So get thinking of any questions you may have after this one.
So another question is, do you see issues regarding the conduct of clubs and societies? So recently the UKIP Society's pub crawl on the celebration of the Crusades was banned, and there have been several allegations regarding the behaviour of certain sports clubs. So again, do you see this as an issue, and how will you resolve this?
Can I start? Yeah, I really do see this as an issue. Again, I keep bringing up Society's executive, but I was on Society's executive, and we did actually have to decide on whether or not we stopped that UKIP event from happening. And there was a bit of flack directed towards us, like, oh, is this free speech? I really don't think it's free speech. It's not a safe campus if you're allowing a society to run an event where they call Muslims infidels. I was very proud to sit on Society's executive. I'm very proud to sit on a platform where we have a zero tolerance policy against discrimination, hateful language in our student groups, because I believe in activities at Kent that is inclusive and is accessible.
Who's coming next?
I think I completely agree with Douglas. Everyone should feel safe at university. It is a safe space. No one should feel uncomfortable or nervous because of their gender, ethnicity, sexuality, etc. But we should, the Society Executive obviously there do look into it properly and take each event on a case-by-case basis. We shouldn't assume because it's a certain society or a certain sports club that they're bad or that they're in the wrong. We need to take every case on a case-by-case basis to make sure that we're fair to all societies regardless of reputation.
Yeah, no, I agree that just because one society or sports club wants to run an event, you shouldn't look at the society of what they've done in the past. It needs to be judged on now. Yeah, society should be inclusive to everyone. No one should be nervous to go to a social or go to an event, worry about how they're going to get home, worry about what might happen when they're at the event. The campaign running at the moment, the Had Enough campaign, I'm a massive supporter of that, love the work they're doing, and that's something that I would want to continue, that sort of vibe throughout anything I did, that it is a safe space. Societies and sports clubs, everything is a safe space for students to come and feel welcome.
Yep, so I agree with Doug and the rest of the guys. So I feel like societies and kind of the events that they run, I feel like, if we're talking about public speakers as well coming in, I feel like there should be a system in place to make sure that other students on campus feel safe when certain public speakers come in. For example, we recently held a protest with people in solidarity to pro-Palestine. And some of the students just didn't feel safe on campus, and I feel like that's such an important issue. I know obviously there's certain controversies with freedom of speech and stuff, but here on our campus, if students are feeling unsafe in a large majority, then something should be taken into consideration, and not kind of who is coming and how much money we've received from them. So,
yeah, sure.
So it's a huge issue, and it's so subjective as well. But I think in terms of, approaching these ideas and tackling issues, it needs to be treated with respect in terms of all parties that would be involved or hurt. It's about communication and literally having enough respect to not intimidate other people. And this should be a safe space. This campus should be home for a lot of people. So I would strive for that.
Okay, I think we should go to a question from the audience now, if we do have one. Yes, here at the front, sorry, on my right.
Obviously, there's more than one campus that Kent Union covers. Did any of you consult any Medway students when you wrote your manifesto?
Yes.
And
yes.
if so, what was the feedback that they gave you?
Sorry.
Sorry, no, you go first. You go first.
I think Emily was first.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I consulted with a lot of Medway society committees. The feedback that I got from them was quite similar to the feedback I got from Canterbury committees, so online banking, better awareness of events, low turnout, but I do feel like in general the Medway societies aren't supported and aren't engaged as Canterbury societies. But I didn't mention Medway specifically in my manifesto because my points are universal to both campuses, apart from having society fairs in the deep end rather than the plaza. I think all the points would be applicable to Medway, and the issues that I had from Medway students were similar to Canterbury students, so yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going wrong? Or?
Oh, sorry, no, you go. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I did choose to include Medway on campus because I did talk to a lot of students who were from Medway, and so I got a lot of feedback from them, and you can see that in my manifesto. But I also included some of my own points that I thought were just common sense. I think that we should have the shuttle bus on days that venue is open should be going on after midnight. So that doesn't just affect people who want to go to venue. It also affects, I go to loads of societies, and there's loads of students who come here from Medway, but they can't stay for the entire event, and they can't stay for the social afterwards, because there's not a bus that will get them back home in time, and they're going to stay up for the entire event. I also think that we should encourage our Canterbury societies and other student groups to establish duplicate ones in Medway. And I also want to give students at Medway more funding so they can actually fund the startup fund and development fund. We can have more societies happening in Medway as well.
Yes. So I've spoken to friends at Medway, sort of similar to what you said. Like, I think most of my points sort of apply to both. I know people who have travelled for societies over here, and I think, just making it more easy for them, making it more easy for everyone to work together between Canterbury and Medway.
I agree. Oh, should I go next? Okay. So I agree because I went to Medway and I had a meeting with the staff. I spoke to the woman who is in charge of I think it's called the Societies Coordinator, and she was quite surprised to see that there's actually the same kind of issues that Canterbury are facing, that Medway also faces, and that's why I've added them in the beginning of my page, but the rest of my manifesto is kind of universal, because if we have, for example, if we tackle selling food on this campus, we're going to be tackling selling food on the Medway campus, and that also comes down to also getting underfunded societies more funding, because I think if we have underfunded societies here, we have underfunded societies in Medway. But one of my also points was, it's kind of confusing as to, say for example, if I'm a Canterbury student and I lived in Medway, what societies would I go to? Because they don't really advertise as in like, especially on the Kent Union website, there's no link to the GK website. So I think that's also like an issue that can be resolved.
So I spoke to our KTV Medway team to get their opinion. Obviously I've seen how difficult it's been for them to be involved in KTV. Travel, for starters, equipment, space, resources, members, everything, communication, it's all been extremely difficult, and I've seen how much they've struggled over the past year. But the main issues that they actually raised to me was things like space, and one of my manifesto points was inspired by the team down there, which was the improv for mental health. So I've tried to make, after that, all of my manifesto points should be relatable for both Canterbury and Medway.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Did you speak to like the main representative body of Medway students, or was it just kind of like talking to friends?
Christian?
I just went through on the GK Union's website, and went on the committee list, the society list, and went through messages society one by one.
Yeah, I spoke to, not the body, just like friends who were in societies at Medway.
Yeah, I spoke to both friends and just people I met generally through other societies.
Yeah, I have a very few friends at Medway, but I spoke to the people who are in charge of managing societies, and then I spoke to like a few students on the day that I was there, and it seemed to correlate to both universal for students, because they too were surprised that, for example, the Canterbury campus has the same issues with underfunded societies, selling food, and
Yeah, I spoke to people that I am friends with and have worked with over the past year to find out their honest opinions on what it's like to be part of this society.
Is that all good? Yep. Yeah. Nor, give it to a question from you, please. We'll come back to you in this while.
All right. Another question we have is, how would you, as Activities VP, engage more postgraduate and part-time students to actively participate in societies on campus, both Canterbury and Medway?
I think it's really difficult to actually find any information about what there is to get involved with. So, for example, I was looking through the Kent Union website and there's just nothing about postgraduates there. So where there is, I can't find it. So it's about making it more accessible and easier to find. And what information there is needs to be more welcoming, I think, because it's incredibly intimidating, especially as a part-time student, to come in and try and be part of university life when your timetable is not the same as everybody else's and you have other responsibilities. So I think there's a massive issue with making activities accessible for people with much busier lives.
One of my main manifesto points is about having clearer and more accurate information on the Kent Union website. That sounds like a really simple point, but I think that when you go through the societies list, a lot of them have half-filled in information, don't know when they meet, how often they meet, what they actually do. It can be quite hard to get involved because it just kind of puts you up. Like, I found it from messaging committees to find feedback in my campaign. But a lot of societies' Facebook pages are out of date, or you can't find who the president is, or it's just quite hard to find the information. So I think it is up-to-date information showing what they do, how often they meet, all that kind of stuff. It makes it a lot easier for postgrads or any students to get involved in activities because they can see what the activities are like before they go along to a meeting. So.
I think it's not just about what Kent Union do. I think it's the society committees as well, because I think a lot of the committee members and even the members of societies aren't aware that there's postgrad students and part-time students who also want to get involved in these activities. So I think it's important to work with society committees, make them aware, and then go through it that way rather than it just coming from Kent Union.
I think that I touched earlier on how we need to have better advertising opportunities for our student groups. But I also think we really need to stress to both undergraduate, postgraduate and part-time students that there's so many benefits you can get by getting involved in activities. You know, the friends you make, the experiences you have, the skills that you develop. You know, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter which part of your degree that you're doing. You know, we need to emphasise through Kent Union, there's a lot of benefits really just getting involved.
I would agree with what everyone else said, really good points, but also just speaking to the postgrads and finding out what they want and if we are doing the right things and things like that and how we can improve on what we're doing, because I think coming from them is going to make the most impact on how we can change also.
So I agree with everyone as well. And what I think is that the Kent Union website, it's filled with lots of societies, but majority of them are actually inactive or committee-less. And it's not that people don't want to take part in the society. It's actually just very hard to find sometimes people who are willing to work hard for the committee. So I think if we have a clear direction on the Kent Union website, that would just show kind of what is available for people to go through, because I know that the majority of societies and this kind of uni culture of drinking is there, and I know most postgraduates don't want to just go out every Friday night and get really trashed, but so it just needs to come back also to societies, what other things that they offer in societies, as in what trips do they do, bar, going out and drinking. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that responses there. I think we'll go back to audience question now. Who wanted to come in with a question? We're right at the back there. Let's challenge our sound operators.
Hi. As a lot has been about funding tonight, as the Treasurer of Canterbury Homeless Outreach, we've been given £0 of funding from the university to run our annual event this year. How, if elected, would you be able to help us, who's got £0 of funding and we don't charge membership? How would you be able to help us?
What do you want to do? Well, that comes more into kind of external funding. For me to say that I can give money out of the pockets is it would be foolish for me to say when I haven't been elected yet and don't know how things are fully run. but that comes more into the point of extra funding. So once we get extra funding, I think, and also when it comes to selling food on campus, I think selling food on campus is going to be the best way for underfunded societies to gain money, especially if they don't charge for people to join the society. Because if you're selling food, then you get that profit and you can use it for yourself. So that's something that we can tackle. And then once we tackle the selling food on campus, we can tackle underfunded societies, and also with external funding. I think that's important.
That's really shocked me, because you seem like a society who do a lot of good work. Homelessness is a massive problem in Canterbury, and it seems a bit crazy that the funding's not been given to something like that, which is obviously going to be really impactful on people, raising awareness in campus and like the wider community. I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration when allocating funding. You've just said that you don't charge membership for your members, so maybe that's something that you should receive more funding than a society who does charge a higher price compared to no price for membership.
I think it's quite unacceptable that you get no funding, to be honest, if you're like a non-profit.
I think he's involved in this. I think it's fair to say.
I'm actually the president of that society. We applied for a development fund. Last year we got £300 for our annual event, held the Homeless Week, which is the week after election week, so check it out guys if you see the events on. We filled out the forms exactly the same as the year before. Filled out all the details similarly, but this year our application was completely rejected by the society's executive, so all the community action groups are not actually sure which one assesses development fund. Megan, you might actually know that.
We didn't actually reject you for no money. KCA exec, basically what we have to do is the exec, because we have money but not loads, and that is an issue that needs to be tackled in itself, because community action groups do have £0 because we fundraise. But the problem is the rules that we are given by Kent Union is that we have to be pretty strict with how you get your money. So if you're not detailing everywhere that it's going, everything you're spending your money on, then we have to basically say no. And at the start of the year, and this is something that I would also change, is that the KCA exec aren't supported enough in knowing how to distribute money, because obviously as students ourselves, like I would happily give £300, but then if we've already said no to a society that wanted £50 for hoodies, then we have to justify that how that money is distributed, and I think that is something that needs to be worked on with the KCA exec and the VP of activities, how they can better support the societies and the charities, because we aren't informed as students on how we can do that. So then it comes down to us as an exec on not helping, and obviously we just want to help. Because
Where the question came from, though, is that addressing your question at the back? Kind of.
Yeah.
What areas would you like me to focus on that they may haven't of already? Because it's.
If a society has zero funding, how would you be able to help raise their awareness on campus? Is more what I'm aiming at. So not worrying about money.
Start again. I don't think we heard it.
More about how you can raise their awareness on campus and help them run events. Because buying food to sell, they need to have money to buy the food, kind of thing, which we don't have.
Good. Let's just try and answer both of those questions. Yeah. Basically, one of the things that I've felt as being a volunteer in Kent Union, and also just something that a lot of other community action groups and societies feel, is they really wish that Kent Union would show a bit more support for the campaigns that they run. I want, and the way that I would do that if I was as Vice President Activities would be, because our community action groups and our societies do such great work, the union should be, providing them with the resources in order to carry out these campaigns. As I've said earlier, we do have the money, and I think that, we do pay so much for our tuition, and if we want to go out and do these campaigns, we should be given the means to do so.
I think we have one more question from the audience. If we can, at the back there, in the black coat.
Okay, my question's about societies as well. I feel like a lot of societies can help each other, but aren't doing it. I feel like, how are you going to get societies to work together to help raise their own members? I feel like also a lot of societies don't have enough people to kind of take over the next committee for the next year, and how are you going to help? Because I feel like a lot of years, the the society's like dormant for 2 years and a whole new group of people come to start this society up again. How are you going to help that society be successful? Because there's a lot of pressures for them to be successful and they don't know how to. And union, I don't think, helped them enough, which is why I feel like when you go on a society online, some have no information, some barely have, and some have a lot. So how would you guys help them?
We could go on probably quite a lot with this one.
Yeah, no, I really agree with that, because when I was president of the Student Assembly against austerity, one way that we were able to get more members in was to just collaborate with a lot of the other political societies that shared our leaning, and that really just raised awareness. It really, raised turnout for loads of other events. So, we should have a lot of like forum, like networking nights and other tactics as well, that we can actually get people to network, connect with each other, realise there's a lot of stuff that they have in common, and that way, you'll have more people coming to each of these people's events each week.
So what is actually in my manifesto is a society survival kit. So in this kit it will tell you how to get funding and what other societies you can actually collaborate with. And also I focus on inactive societies, because I know that there's so many inactive societies but people don't know that they're either inactive or the committee list. So at the Freshers Fair I believe that there should be an inactive societies table where people are aware of what societies are available but whether they have people, so maybe they can gain a committee and then they can help it develop throughout the year.
So a point on my manifesto is mixes between Kent Union and societies, which is something that the union already does, but the turnout's not been great. So it's about raising awareness for that and making sure that all societies actually know that this event is going on. So that's a way for societies to get to know each other. As for getting new members and keeping members, obviously that's a lot more tricky because it depends on each one. But in terms of engagement, I think it's about knowing what's actually there. So, for example, like you said, the website's quite outdated in terms of a lot of the information boxes just empty or whatever. There's not enough information there. So I think it's about updating that, and then we can go from there.
Okay. If we don't have time to have any more answers, but we're now going to move on to the final closing statements as to why you should be elected as VP Activities, and I'm going to elect Megan to go first, please.
Thank you for taking the time to be here tonight to ask us all questions. As I said at the start of the debate, I'm both passionate and proud of the work that all the societies have at the uni do for us as students and the causes that they believe in. There are two reasons that I believe I'd be an ideal candidate to represent all of you in your societies. Firstly, I know how the student union works. I've been a part-time member of staff in the SAC since September, an elected member of the KC Executive, and I am also the president of Stage Spiders. Secondly, I'm a fighter. I've had a tough time at uni. As I mentioned earlier, I suffered terribly during my first year with my mental health. I couldn't find my place here, and looking back, I wish I'd learned about some of the smaller societies, as the drinking sport culture is just not for me. I want to ensure that all students know of these less known societies, which could help them find their place, much like Stage Spiders did for me. During my second year, I became seriously ill with bacterial meningitis and spent 3 weeks in hospital. I was lucky, as I escaped with any nerve damage. It would have been so easy for me to give up, but I didn't, and I can tell you all now that if you elect me, I will not give up on any of your causes. Whether you vote for me or not, I'm looking forward to the journey that we're all about to go on, and I wish the best of luck to my fellow candidates. But I hope you'll join me and put your hands up for Hewitt.
Let's go down the line. Beth, please.
So I hope it's clear that my main priority is you and building a sense of community, and communication is probably the main thing. SABs are elected to be your voice, and that's exactly what I intend to do for you. So you have to bear with me. So one of my biggest pledges is to give students with disabilities better access to activities. I filmed a lot of Disability History Month, and I was very, very disappointed, as I said earlier, that there wasn't enough promotion. Kent Union can do better, and I've witnessed how difficult it can be for some of you to get involved and noticed it more after these events. It's time to start listening to you through open forums and implementing change to benefit you. Let's get the things you need, yet retain your independence. So I also feel passionately about continuing support for other minority groups such as BME communities and LGBT+ groups. You won't be forgotten here. I will continue the fight what SABs have started on your behalf. I want academically flexible Wednesdays so you can make time for your activities. We will secure a new student union building, which I will ensure has a space that so many of you have asked for. The future-proof campaign, access to activities, and society and union mixers will become successes. Not enough of you know about them, and it's time for that to change. Kent Union will get better at raising awareness and promotion under my watch. I'll be implementing a Getting Home Safer scheme where no student should have to pay extortionate amounts of money on a taxi to get home safe after a long night of studying, being in a society, or even a night out. Better information for postgraduate students on activities, transparent sponsorship system, and an extension of this Kent Girl Can campaign to societies, and so much more. I wish I could tell you about every single point I have, and please do read my manifesto, as I designed it from society's feedback and my own personal experiences. From me, you will get someone who believes in student groups, academic, cultural, religious, political, performance, media, physical activity, and special interest. Having a place at this university, the right to your opinions, and to have your voice heard. It's time to create a campus community that shows respect to one another and is a safe space for all. That was literally great.
So I want to represent you, the students, in building a sense of community within our union. So before I even ask you to vote for me, why vote at all? So every election actually affects you and your university experience and beyond that. So if you have the opportunity to influence that change, why not use it to your advantage and vote for someone who you actually believe that will make a change within this union. So I hope that the debate has given you an insight in who represents you the most. So I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from MLK. So it says that our lives begin to end the day we become silent about the things that matter. So don't forget to vote for me and keep updated on my campaign via my Facebook page, where my music video will drop tomorrow at 2 p.m. So hashtag vote for Sasha and think Sasha.
Doug now.
Right, thank you. Again, so my campaign isn't just about me. I see my campaign as a movement for everyone who feels disengaged and disenfranchised from the union. I see my movement as being one that is a movement for everyone who feels that there's too many restrictions on running a group and too many restrictions on running events. I see my movement as a movement for everyone who needs and wants activities at Kent to be inclusive, accessible and affordable. I see my movement as a movement for everyone who wants the union to be on their side. If you share my vision, like my Facebook page at facebook.com/go5car and join the army.
So firstly, thank you all for coming this evening. It's great to see so many people engaging with your student union. I have a few manifesto points concerning society storage and an online banking system, but my main point is to maximise student involvement by making activities financially accessible to all, introducing a buddy scheme and providing more recognition and rewards for our volunteers. I'm 100% dedicated to listening to what students want and delivering the changes that you want to see. I'm enthusiastic, determined, and I do not give up. Hopefully I've shown you a bit of what I'm about tonight. I know we could all talk about all of the issues for a very long time, but check out my manifesto on the Kent Union page, and you can follow my Instagram and Facebook pages at Keist for Activities, and remember, count on Keist for VP Activities.
Thank you for listening to the debate tonight. I hope you found it useful, listening to the candidates and hearing our views on lots of different issues. It's been very insightful. Online banking, Kent Union events calendar, working to get the best Kent Union building we can have, updated committee training, including topics such as mental health, social media and disability training, are just a few of many manifesto points. If these sound good to you, then please check out my full manifesto online. My main two focuses will be on making activities accessible to all and making committees easier to run and better committees, make societies work better for all. So you can check out my Facebook and Instagram pages at Do Vote to Vitae, and remember to do vote to Vitae for your next week activities. Thank you.
To everyone watching on KTV, watching this evening, I obviously want to go to bed, and everyone watching at home, hope that's all been useful for you with the education debate and the activities debate. You can catch all of the activities manifestos and all the other manifestos for the other candidates on the Kent Union website. You can download each of them on there. KTV will be back tomorrow live from Medway for the sports and welfare debates. Make sure you tune in at 6 p.m. For them as well. Until then, good night.